Good morning, you're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting News on the Hour this morning, a show which we get for you every morning to make sure you keep yourself abreast with everything that's making it to the headlines. We'll get to national updates, international updates, also updates from the world of business, sports, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. First, we get to the top stories. India administers highest ever vaccine doses in a single day at 1 crore 33 lakh. Schools reopen in many states from today. Supreme Court to resume physical hearing of cases in a limited manner along with virtual hearing thrice a week. Flood situation worsens in Assam and Bihar with East Central Railway suspending rail movement on some sections. Torrential rains cause extensive waterlogging in several parts of Maharashtra. IMD issues orange alert for NCR and adjoining areas. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to release a special commemorative coin of Rs 125 on the occasion of 125th birth anniversary of ISKCON founder Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. US President Joe Biden defends US pullout as Taliban claim victory in Afghanistan. Biden says Afghanistan exit marks the end of an era of major military operations to remake other countries. And India seeks to improve its overall tally of 10 medals on the 8th day of the Paralympics Games with matches in badminton and athletics today. Shooting contingent falls short of finals. Alright, those are the top stories. Let's get to the news in detail now. In a significant achievement, a record high of more than 1.33 crore vaccine doses have been administered in the last 24 hours. The new record was set in just 5 days after India witnessed the first day of administration of 1 crore vaccine doses. A total of 1 crore 33 lakh 18,718 vaccine doses have been administered in the last 24 hours. With this, the nationwide vaccination coverage has also consequently crossed 65 crore landmark. Over 65.41 crore vaccine doses have been administered across the country till now. Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia lauded the entire country for the achievement of more than 1 crore doses for the second day within a span of 5 days. He also applauded the hard work of COVID warriors and diligence of citizens in helping achieve this momentous feat of more than 50 crore cumulative administration of the first dose of the vaccine. And up next, an update on COVID-19 situation from across the country. The recovery of 33,964 patients in the last 24 hours has increased the cumulative tally of recovered patients to 3 crore 19 lakh 93,644. Consequently, India's recovery rate stands at 97.51%. Sustained and collaborative efforts by the centre and the states and union territories has continued the trend of less than 50,000 daily new cases that is being reported for 65 consecutive days now. 41,965 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. The active caseload is presently at 3,78,181. Active cases presently constitute 1.15% of the country's total positive cases. The testing capacity across the country continues to be expanded. The last 24 hours saw a total of 16,06,785 tests being conducted. India has so far conducted over 52.31 crore cumulative tests. While testing capacity has been enhanced across the country, weekly positivity rate at 2.58% remains less than 3% for the last 68 days now. The daily positivity rate stands at 2.61%. Also, the daily positivity rate has remained below 5% for 86 consecutive days now. In the last couple of years, Gosaba in the Sundarbans in West Bengal has been ravaged successfully by the super cyclone Amphan and then cyclone Yas. Also, this area of South 24 Parganas district of West Bengal comprises of 14 Gram Panchayats spread across 9 islands. Almost 3 lakh people inhabit these remote islands. Out of them, about 2 lakh are adults and are eligible for COVID vaccines. Nearly 45% of the adult population of Gosaba has already received the first dose. At one point of time, the rate of positivity had come down to 0, but recently, as some people tested positive, micro-containment zones were set up and the district administration decided to step up the pace of the vaccination drive. The special drive began on last Saturday and the target is to administer 1 lakh jabs within 4 days. Camps have been set up at all polling booths. The voters list is being used to compile the list of people to be vaccinated. The option for online booking is also available. Doctors have also been specifically designated at these camps. More than 90 trained health workers and data entry operators too have been deployed. Boats are primary means of transportation for reaching these islands.
Is the remotest one situated in the delta region of Sundarban. We are roughly target of 1 lakh population to vaccinate. District administration decided to vaccinate all such people within 4 days. It is already started and response is very good.
As the downward trend continues for fresh COVID cases across the country and also the vaccination drive picks up pace, schools across various states are resuming physical classes with COVID safety protocols from today. Schools in the national capital reopened for classes 9 to 12 with a bunch of special protocols meant to adhere to the COVID guidelines, allowing only 50% students per classroom, mandatory thermal screening, staggered lunch breaks and also alternate seating arrangement are among the guidelines announced by the Delhi Disaster Management Authority for reopening of schools and colleges. Schools across various states also resumed physical classes with COVID safety protocols from today. And in Tamil Nadu, classes for 9th to 12th standards, colleges and polytechnics reopened today. The new set of regulations has permitted that college and school students can travel free to their institutions in Transport Corporation buses from today across the state. The Rajasthan government too reopened schools for classes 9 to 12. Only 50% of students are allowed to attend classes in each session to maintain COVID protocols. In Telangana, physical classes in all educational institutions, including schools, colleges and coaching centers, will reopen from today. The schools will reopen for all classes. Schools in Puducherry will also resume today for classes 9 to 12 with 50% capacity. Also, the school will hold classes in 2 shifts, morning and evening, in an alternate manner. Assam government is all set to resume physical classes in schools for classes 10 to 12 from today. In Arunachal Pradesh, schools will reopen in offline mode for classes 9 to 12. Schools, colleges and universities across the state had remained closed since May last, following the outbreak of the second wave of COVID pandemic. All schools, private and public, are permitted to reopen in Meghalaya from today in urban as well as rural areas. Whereas in the urban areas, online classes would continue for classes 1st to 5th, school visits for classes 6 to 8th and on-campus classes for students of classes 9 to 12. In the rural areas, school visits would be allowed for classes 1 to 5 and on-campus open classes for students of classes 6 to 12. In Uttar Pradesh, schools have reopened from today for classes 1st to 5th. All the schools have been directed by their respective state governments to strictly follow the already issued COVID standard operating procedure. Earlier, UP schools for classes 6 to 8 were opened from August 23rd and schools for classes 9 to 12 were reopened from August 16th. Alright, Nandita Dagar is joining us from the national capital. Nandita, today the schools, were inviting students for physical classes from classes 9 to 12, but at the same time, the weather gods, did not have mercy on the national capital, and intermittent rainfall is being witnessed in the national capital. You tell us, how is it when you're visiting schools this morning? Let us know the first-hand account of. Yes, please continue, Nandita.
I'm at a senior secondary government school in Saket. It's a Delhi government school, Preeti. So we are observing very strict rules of attendance. In fact, I have seen teachers here actually scold children who are turning up late for the school. And yes, as you correctly mentioned, that there have been rainfall, very heavy rainfall in various parts of the city. Therefore, that has obviously thinned out the attendance, and it is causing many students to actually postpone their joining the school. And the Delhi Disaster Management Authority has issued strict protocols for the students here. Every school, at the entrance has a sanitizer, hand rub or sanitizer spray bottle. Children are being selectively called to classes. Means classes have only up to 50% capacity. Classes can be filled, that is the maximum. Also, the lunch break has to be staggered, and not all students will be released for the lunch break. As you know, Delhi is not the only place where schools are opening. Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Pondicherry, Tamil Nadu, these are also the places where schools are opening. And in Delhi, we are seeing very thin attendance these days. Today, because of the very, very heavy rainfall and the downpour that we are seeing. In fact, I myself had a lot of problems reaching here, and the students here, of course, are probably not wearing the uniforms. They are appearing in their casual clothes because they are from class 9th to 12th, and therefore they are here to clarify their doubts, and they are in the board exams. They are appearing for the board exams also. So they are in board classes like 10th and 12th, and 9th and 11th are very, very critical classes. Preeti?
All right, Nandita, also very quickly, let us know about the special operating procedure with regard to COVID-19, which has to be followed in the schools with regard to, students attending physical classes in the schools from today onwards.
Yes, Preeti, actually, very, very strict protocols are being followed. At least in the school where I am, at the Delhi government senior secondary school in Saket, it is near PVR, it is very well maintained, and also a lot of cleanliness and hand rubs and hand sanitizer sprays are available at every nook and corner. The thermal temperature check machines are mandatory. Every student who is entering, his temperature is being checked, and of course, they have to show that their parents have agreed to their joining the classes, because the signature of the parent on a form is mandatory. As you know, that it was the Delhi government's decision that it was left to the parents to decide whether they want to send their children for physical classes or continue with the online classes. Preeti?
All right, Nandita, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs. That was our correspondent Nandita Dagar telling us more about how the schools have reopened today for classes 9 to 12 in the national capital. Let's get to other updates now. The Supreme Court is scheduled to resume physical hearing of cases in a limited manner from today. After a hiatus of more than 1 year, physical hearing of cases will be held in matters requiring lengthy hearings on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. The virtual hearings will continue on Mondays and Fridays, which are miscellaneous days. The top court had been conducting hearing of the cases through video conferencing since March last year in view of the COVID pandemic. Wearing of mask, frequent use of hand sanitizer, and also maintaining social distancing are the norms mandatory for all entrants into the premises of Supreme Court, including into the courtrooms. The entry of the parties in a matter will be permitted not earlier than 10 minutes prior to the start of the hearing. Up next, waiting for a short break. Stay with us. You're watching News on the Hour. We'll be back in a short while.
With the world's largest COVID vaccination drive, India is leading the way. As the vaccine reaches every corner of the nation, do not forget the mantra, Dawai bhi, Kadai bhi. Let's continue our fight against COVID-19. Vaccination along with social distancing, sanitization and masks.
Mask up, India!
Put your mask on and cover your nose and be safe.
Mask Up India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching News on the Hour, and now we get to an update on rain and flood situation from across the country. When we talk of the flood situation in Assam, the Kaziranga National Park and its nearby areas is improving slightly. According to the forest official of Bagori range of the national park, the water level has gone down a couple of inches in the area, and many of the animals have taken shelter in the highlands. Some of the animals were seen this morning crossing the national highway and also moving towards Karbi Hills in the south. Overall flood situation in Assam is grim. As per the information provided by State Disaster Management Authority, 22 districts have been affected in the floods till now. Number of affected villages has gone up to 1,278. Population of 5.37 lakh has been affected so far. Nalbari, Darang and Lakhimpur are the worst affected districts, and more than 1 lakh people have been affected in each of these districts. The government has taken prompt measures for relief activities. So far, more than 4,000 people have taken shelter in 105 relief camps and centers set up by the administration. Different NGOs have also been distributing clothes, food items to the affected people. The flood situation in several districts of North Bihar remains grim as all the major rivers in the area are in spate. The river Ganga is on the rise from Buxar to Kahalgaon. The train services on Samastipur-Darbhanga rail section have been disrupted as the water level of Kare river is touching the girder of a rail bridge in Hayaghat. Also, trains have been cancelled while some others have been rerouted. The Ganga river is flowing above the danger mark in Gandhighat, in Patna and Hatida. Kosi and Mahananda rivers are also playing havoc in several districts. In Gopalganj, water of river Gandak has entered around 10,000 houses. The discharge from Kosi and Valmiki Nagar barrages remain above normal. In all, over 100 panchayats are inundated with flood water. Meanwhile, Chief Minister Nitish Kumar on Tuesday conducted an aerial survey of the flood-affected areas of the state to assess the damage caused by prevailing floods. The Bihar Chief Minister made an aerial survey of flood-affected Darbhanga and Madhubani to take stock of the situation arising out of floods. Minister of State for Defence Ajay Bhatt will visit flood-affected areas in Uttarakhand today. He will be reaching Dharchula along with DG Border Roads and MP Ajay Tamta to take stock of the flood situation. Frequent landslides have blocked several highways. Rivers are in spate after heavy rains in Uttarakhand. Heavy monsoon rains have triggered landslides that have blocked several highways. The Minister of State reviewed the flood situation in Uttarakhand in a meeting with Director General Border Roads in New Delhi on Tuesday, and he also took stock of the damage to Pithoragarh-Tawaghat road between kilometers 98 to 102. He also inquired about the damage to Pithoragarh-Tawaghat road. Lieutenant General Chaudhary apprised Shri Bhatt that along with BRO, National Disaster Relief Force and the entire team of local administration are engaged in relief and rescue operation to provide succor to the affected. Several parts of Delhi and the adjoining cities such as Noida, Greater Noida, Ghaziabad and Gurugram received moderate to heavy rains today morning. As per the IMD, the national capital and its neighbouring areas are likely to witness thunderstorms with moderate to heavy intensity rains during the next few hours as well. It has also directed continuous rainfall in Delhi till Friday. Delhi has been experiencing heavy rainfall over the course of this week. Due to waterlogging, traffic movement at a few stretches was restricted and people were advised to avoid these routes. Mumbai, its neighbouring Thane, Palghar and other districts in the Konkan region witnessed heavy downpour yesterday. The weather department has predicted heavy to very heavy rainfall for Madhya Maharashtra for today. The rainfall is likely to decrease gradually from tomorrow and the city might receive only light drizzles during the weekend. Currently, the weather is cloudy in Mumbai. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will release a special commemorative coin of 125 rupees and will address the gathering on the occasion of 125th birth anniversary of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada via video conferencing. Swamiji founded the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that is ISKCON, commonly known as Hare Krishna movement. ISKCON has translated Srimad Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literature in 89 languages, playing a stellar role in dissemination of Vedic literature across the world. Swamiji also established over 100 temples and wrote several books teaching the path of Bhakti Yoga to the world. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke on phone with the President of European Council, His Excellency Charles Michel, on Tuesday. The leaders discussed the recent developments in Afghanistan and also the implications for the region and the world. They unequivocally condemned the horrific terror attack at Kabul International Airport that resulted in many casualties. They emphasized the importance of a stable and secure Afghanistan and discussed the potential role India and the European Union could play in this context. The two leaders agreed to remain in touch on bilateral and global issues, in particular the situation in Afghanistan. Later, Prime Minister in a tweet said, and I quote him, spoke with Charles Michel, President of the European Council, about the evolving situation in Afghanistan, also reiterated our commitment to further strengthening the India-European Union relations. Indian ambassador to Qatar, Deepak Mittal, met the head of Taliban's political office in Qatar in a meeting held on the request of the Taliban side, which focused on safety, security and early return of Indian nationals stranded in Afghanistan. India raised its concern that Afghanistan's soil should not be used for anti-India activities, and Taliban assured that India's concerns will be positively addressed. We get to more in this report.
The government of India is keeping a close watch on the fast evolving situation in Afghanistan. India is concerned about the security situation in Afghanistan in the wake of twin bomb blasts last week, drone attacks and reports of sporadic violence from it. As per sources in the Ministry for External Affairs, the highest echelons of the Indian government, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi and External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, are monitoring the situation in Afghanistan.
The evolving situation in Afghanistan, the Prime Minister has directed that a high-level group comprising of the External Affairs Minister, the National Security Advisor and other senior officials of the Government of India will focus on immediate priorities of India and Afghanistan. In fact, this group has been meeting regularly over the past few days. It's seized of issues pertaining to the safe return of stranded Indians who are still in Afghanistan, and also of the travel of those Afghan nationals, especially belonging to the minorities of Afghanistan who might wish to come to India. The group is ensuring that the territory of Afghanistan is not used in any manner for terrorism directed against India. The group has also been monitoring the ground situation in Afghanistan and the international response to it, including the UNSC resolution passed by the Security Council, the 2593 resolution, which basically states that demands that Afghan territory is not used to threaten or to attack any country or to shelter or train terrorists or plan and finance terrorist acts. In fact, this 2593 resolution that the UNSC passed under the presidency of India, as India is the current president of the Security Council, specifically mentions individuals and entities designated pursuant to the UNSC resolution 1267, which includes organizations like the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed.
पूरी दुनिया के लिए एक चुनौती है और अफगानिस्तान में जिस तरह प्रतिपल स्थितियां बदल रही हैं, भारत में एक सक्षम सरकार है और योग्य नेतृत्व हमारे पास है। हम प्रत्येक स्थिति पर नज़र रखे हैं और हिंदुस्तान के किसी भी व्यक्ति को किसी तरह का नुकसान न हो, इसके लिए सरकार पूरी तरह से प्रतिबद्ध है।
With the top brass in India keenly watching the developments in Afghanistan, India established diplomatic contact with the Taliban in Qatar on Tuesday. Indian ambassador to Qatar, Deepak Mittal, met Sheikh Mohammed Abbas Stanekzai, the head of Taliban's political office in Doha, at the Indian embassy in Doha on the request of the Taliban side. They discussed safety, security and early return of the Indian nationals stranded in Afghanistan, besides the travel of Afghan nationals, especially minorities who wish to visit India. Ambassador Mittal raised India's concern that Afghanistan's soil should not be used for anti-Indian activities and terrorism in any manner. The Taliban representative assured the ambassador that these issues would be positively addressed. This comes close on the heels of a video statement by Stanekzai on Sunday that India is very important for the subcontinent and the Taliban wants to continue Afghanistan's cultural, economic, political and trade ties with India like in the past, in what was the first categorical statement directed at India by a senior leader of the Taliban since they captured power in Kabul on 15th of August. Back home, the government of India briefed floor leaders of various political parties in India on the Afghanistan crisis last week. On Prime Minister's direction, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar gave the briefing. After Taliban's takeover of Kabul, India evacuated its diplomatic staff, majority of its national and some Afghan nationals, including minorities, directly or via third countries with the help of Indian Air Force aircraft and Air India planes. The government of India had swung into action as soon as the situation in Afghanistan deteriorated and asserted that safe passage for Indian nationals from Afghanistan is a top priority. 2 days after Taliban's takeover, Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security where he was briefed about the situation in Afghanistan. India evacuated Afghan minorities including Sikhs and Hindus and also brought 3 copies of Sri Guru Granth Sahib to India from a Kabul Gurudwara. The sacred scripture was received by Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri at Delhi Airport. He carried the Sri Guru Granth Sahib on his head, showing utmost respect to it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi acknowledged that even though there are challenges in Afghanistan, the sacred scripture was safely brought to India. India played a key role in reconstruction of war-ravaged Afghanistan and is mindful of the situation in the region as it is likely to have security and other implications. With Amritpal Singh, Bureau Report, DD India.
Less than 24 hours after the last United States military flight left Kabul, President Joe Biden mounted a defiant defense of the withdrawal, saying it was the right decision to end US's 20-year military presence in Afghanistan. Speaking in from a firm tone from the White House, Biden said that keeping US troops in control of the airport and Afghan capital beyond the August 31st withdrawal deadline would have exposed them to heightened security risk.
US President Joe Biden vigorously defended the withdrawal of US forces from Afghanistan, saying his administration had evacuated the vast majority of Americans who wanted to leave the country and would refrain from future military action that lacked clear, achievable goals. In an address to the nation, a day after the end of a 20-year-old US presence in Afghanistan, Biden emphatically argued that it was the right decision and called the evacuations of Americans an extraordinary success. He asserted that August 31st was not an arbitrary deadline but was designated to save American lives.
I take responsibility for the decision. Now some say we should have started mass evacuation sooner. And couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. Imagine if we'd begun evacuations in June or July, bringing in thousands of American troops and evacuating more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war. There still would have been a rush to the airport, a breakdown in confidence and control of the government, and it still would have been a very difficult and dangerous mission. The bottom line is there is no evacuation from the end of a war that you can run without the kinds of complexities, challenges, and threats we faced. None.
Biden said the only other option would have been to step up the fight. He asserted that he was neither in favor of extending this forever war nor extending a forever exit.
By the time I came to office, the Taliban was in its strongest military position since 2001, controlling or contesting nearly half of the country. So we were left with a simple decision. Either follow through on the commitment made by the last administration and leave Afghanistan, or say we weren't leaving and commit another tens of thousands more troops going back to war. That was the choice, the real choice, between leaving or escalating. I was not going to extend this forever war, and I was not extending a forever exit.
Biden also criticized the ousted Afghan government's inability to fight back against swift Taliban advances, which forced the United States and its NATO allies into a hasty and humiliating exit.
I simply do not believe that the safety and security of America is enhanced by continuing to deploy thousands of American troops and spending billions of dollars a year in Afghanistan. But I also know that the threat from terrorism continues in its pernicious and evil nature. But it's changed, expanded to other countries. Our strategy has to change too.
Finally, the president assured that his administration would continue to help Americans exit the country, saying 100 to 200 of them remained after more than 5,500 Americans had gotten out before the withdrawal ended. Bureau Report, DD India.
To get us more on that, our correspondent Ravi Dhiman is joining us. Ravi, how do you assess the current situation in Afghanistan with US finally and completely withdrawn from the country and the distraught nation in the hands of Taliban? What next for it?
Well, the situation remains good, Preeti, because you see, Afghanistan is a conglomerate of warlords. Taliban, we can say, now controls more territory in Afghanistan than it did in 2001 when US intervened following 9/11 attacks. And Taliban is much more stronger thanks to many strategic assets left over by the US troops and the weapons and weaponry the Taliban fighters confiscated from the erstwhile Afghan government forces. So Taliban remains strong. That's a central piece for Afghanistan. But for peace and tranquility and economic development to return to Afghanistan, many more efforts will have to be made by the Taliban leadership, including holding on to their commitment of upholding and respecting human rights, especially of minorities, women and children, and their commitment of letting go those Afghan nationals who want to leave Afghanistan, ensuring that there is no reprisal attacks on all the Afghan nationals who work for the NATO allies, including the US. And also, what has been repeatedly said and asked of Taliban leadership by the world community is not allowing Taliban to become a breeding ground for terror recruits for terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda, and especially in India's concern, the Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba, which have their guns trained at India. And this is a commitment which the world will see Taliban hold on to in the coming weeks and months. And only then the leaders are convinced that Taliban is indeed walking the talk and not allowing any such nefarious activities from its soil, that the coffers will open up different institutions like World Bank and IMF, and other nations will also come and help Afghanistan financially, because the economy of this landlocked nation is in doldrums, and they desperately need some financial help to get the economy going. Because as per reports by the UN, many UN bodies, around 50% of the Afghans are in danger of food crisis. There is a scarcity of food. The inflation is skyrocketing, and the economy is just tumbling down. The Afghan currency is in a downward spiral, and there are problems aplenty for Afghanistan. But the economic problems and the financial crisis has the potential to act as a catalyst and further aggravate the situation. So for Taliban to kickstart the economy and to steer Afghanistan to a better future, first they will have to hold on to their promises, and the world will be watching with keen eyes. India will also want Taliban to come true to its words and not allow Taliban to become a breeding ground for terror, especially from the Pak-based terror groups, and also allow the Indians who are still there safe return home, and Afghanistan minorities who want to come to India.
All right, you're talking of Taliban, expectations from Taliban to walk the talk. Ravi, also the Indian ambassador talked to the Taliban political head in Qatar. What do you make of that meeting? What do you, how do you evaluate that meeting? Because India made it clear that it does not want Afghanistan's soil to be used for terrorist activities against India. At the same time, it was well responded to by the Taliban side when it says that Indian concerns will be looked into. So, do we really, can we really expect, or rather for that matter, trust Taliban?
Well, that's a reality that the world has come to accept now, that Taliban is firmly in saddle in Kabul, and it controls a major part of Afghanistan, sans the Panjshir Valley, where the fighting has broken out between the Taliban and the Northern Alliance. But apart from that, Taliban is in control of Kabul, and for the Indian interest, India had to open up a diplomatic channel with Taliban, and their political office in Doha served as a perfect place for where India has struck a chord with Taliban, opened up a channel, and tried to convince the Taliban leadership that all the Indians who are there, they must be allowed a safe exit, and the minorities must be allowed to come back, and Taliban should ensure that the territory of Afghanistan is not used for terror activities. Now, the truth is that it has dawned upon the world and the nations of the world that Taliban is probably in charge of Afghanistan. Whether they would have liked it, the situation to develop this way or not, but the reality is that Taliban is in charge. It's in charge of the airport also. Earlier, the US forces were manning the airport for 17 days, and India could get out its embassy staff. But there are still Indians there. There's a huge amount of Indian investment in Afghanistan, and Afghan Taliban leaders have said that they want India to continue investing in Afghanistan. So these are some topics which can only go forward once we have diplomatic channel with them, and we can make our concerns known to them.
All right, Ravi, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining in with your inputs. That was our correspondent Ravi Dhiman telling us more about the current situation in Afghanistan and how the world expects Taliban to walk the talk right now. So we'll have to see, in fact, how the days ahead still pan out in the country there. Meanwhile, hours after the withdrawal of the last American troops from Afghanistan, Taliban leaders on Tuesday declared victory over the US from the tarmac of Kabul airport. However, before leaving, the US troops destroyed more than 70 aircrafts and dozens of armored vehicles and disabled air defenses at the Kabul airport, and that had thwarted an attempted Islamic State rocket attack on the eve of their departure. Taliban soldiers on Tuesday inspected the damaged aircraft and equipment at Kabul airport. The US military helicopters with smashed windows and deflated tires sat at the airport hangars, and also damaged equipment was strewn across the tarmac. The Islamist militants now control more territory than when they last ruled before they were driven out in America's longest civilian war, which took the lives of nearly 2,500 US troops and an estimated 240,000 Afghans. Vehicles carrying Taliban reinforcements on Tuesday were seen driving through Panjshir Valley after clashes with militia fighters a day earlier, in which at least 7 people were killed. Since the fall of Kabul on August 15, the Panjshir has been the only province to hold out against the Taliban. Fahim Dashti, a spokesman for the National Resistance Forces, said the fighting occurred on the western entrance to the valley where the Taliban attacked NRF positions. Masood, son of former anti-Soviet Mujahideen commander Ahmad Shah Masood, has established himself in the Panjshir Valley. He has called for a negotiated settlement with the Taliban, but has said that his forces will resist if their province in the narrow and mountainous valley is attacked. A significant force of Taliban fighters has been moved to the area, but the two sides have so far been engaged in negotiations and have avoided fighting. European Union countries on Tuesday offered to step up humanitarian aid to Afghanistan and assistance to neighboring countries. However, they remain divided sharply on whether to allow into Europe any of the people fleeing the return of the Taliban. Western nations evacuated some 100,000 people from Afghanistan, where the Taliban on Tuesday celebrated the withdrawal of US troops after 2 decades. The bloc's top migration official called for EU members to adopt a comprehensive approach to the unfolding situation in the Central Asian country. The bloc has fortified its external borders and increased assistance to countries including Turkey, Lebanon, Libya and Tunisia in a bid to keep people away from its own soil.
In a situation, of course, where we need a comprehensive approach towards Afghanistan. We need to avoid a humanitarian crisis. We need to avoid a migratory crisis. And we need to avoid security threats.
Last year, some 42,000 Afghans won legal protection in the European Union, which hosts the 10th of the world's refugees and also where the refugees amount to only some 0.6% of the total population. German Chancellor Angela Merkel estimates that there are still between 10 and 40,000 German staff working for development organizations in Afghanistan. Merkel on Tuesday said that these staff have a right to be evacuated to Germany if they feel they are endangered. The German Chancellor said that most of the staff working for the German armed forces and police were already outside Afghanistan, but since development aid to Afghanistan had not been stopped, many staff in that field remained in the country. Merkel also confirmed that Germany was in talks with international partners, including France and Italy, as to how best to conduct talks with the Taliban. Germany and its partners are trying to work out a way to achieve a European presence in Afghanistan without any official recognition of the Taliban.
Das heißt also, für uns steht
For us, the focus at the moment is local staff, and that's not 300 people. That's probably more like 10 to 40,000 people. And we will have to see how many of them want to leave the country and how many don't. This number will be influenced by the way the Taliban decide to rule the country. That is our position, as well as offering humanitarian aid. As we've seen, nobody takes the decision to leave their home.
Das ist unsere Einstellung und ansonsten humanitäre Hilfe. Niemand verlässt leichtfertig sein.
A US military plane on Tuesday landed in Spain's Rota naval base, carrying 201 evacuees, including Afghans who were among the last to leave Kabul following the withdrawal of the last US troops, marking the end of a 20-year war. After disembarking the US Air Force KC-19 aircraft, the refugees were seen entering a large hangar where they were provided bottles of water and food. They were also tested for COVID-19. Evacuees are temporarily housed at the base until they are taken to the United States. And Afghan nationals gathered in front of the German embassy in Tehran on Tuesday in a bid to acquire refugee visas from the European country after the Taliban overtook Afghanistan this month. Some 150 Afghans gathered in front of the embassy as well as the adjacent Turkish embassy in the hopes of registering for visas for the countries. The refugee crisis that ensued the swift Taliban takeover of Afghanistan prompted many responses from various countries, especially those who had been present in the country post-2002 and who are now looking to extract aides and interpreters who helped Western troops in the country. Afghan refugees and street vendors in India say that they fear for their country, which has now been conquered by Taliban. A refugee, Abdul Kaher, who makes flatbread at his food stall in New Delhi, is concerned about those who were left behind in the war-torn country and says that fighters will spread terror and impose strict restrictions on Afghans, especially the women.
I feel that the Taliban will become fearless. As the US troops are leaving Afghanistan, the Taliban will do whatever they want. When the US troops were in Afghanistan, the Taliban were scared that if they would create any trouble, US troops would destroy them. But now, the Taliban has lost all fear. The Taliban government will not last long. The government is not stable. It does not listen to any other country. It will not take care of Afghans. The Taliban government may fall within 3 to 4 months, and our Afghanistan will get a new government.
Afghan refugees on Tuesday staged a sit-in protest outside the United Nations Refugee Agency office, calling for refugee cards and resettlement options to a third country, as well as more security. And up next, we're heading for a short break. You're watching News on the Hour. Stay with us. We'll be back.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Zari India.
Salam India. Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Muy
India.
Nahnu hunud. India. Ma Hindi hasti. Hum Hindiani.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back after the break. Let's continue with our global updates. We'll get to a situation when we talk of COVID-19 across the world. As per the figures, over 21 crore 85 lakh people across the world have been infected by the pandemic so far, while the recoveries stand above 19 crore 53 lakh globally. More than 45 lakh 33,000 people have lost their lives to the virus worldwide. The US continues to remain the worst hit of all the countries, with over 4 crore, and the number of deaths stands above 6 lakh 57,000. The European Commission said on Tuesday that 70% of the European Union's adult population had been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, hitting a target it had set at the beginning of the year. The announcement marks an important milestone in the EU vaccination strategy after a slow start, but it also marks big differences among the EU countries, with some nations being well above the 70% goal, while others in the poorer eastern region of the bloc far behind. In January, the Commission said that by summer 2021, member states should have vaccinated a minimum of 70% of the adult population, and this was interpreted as meaning that each of the 27 European Union member states should hit that target by September. Many who feared that they could not had criticized the Commission in the internal meetings.
Today, we reached an important milestone in our vaccination campaign. 70% of adults in the European Union are now fully vaccinated. And that is more than 250 million people who are immunized. And this is a great achievement, which really shows what we can do when we work together. But the pandemic is not over, and we must remain vigilant. So first of all, we need many more Europeans to vaccinate rapidly, to avoid a new wave of infections and to stop the emergence of new variants.
Up next, some business news. When we talk of the action at the international stock market, Wall Street's main indices on Tuesday closed marginally lower, having all posted lifetime highs in the second half of the month, including 4 record closings in 5 sessions for S&P 500 prior to Tuesday. The 3 benchmarks were weighed by technology stocks on the final day of August. While a strong recovery in the economic growth and corporate earnings have boosted US stocks in August, investors are concerned about rising COVID cases and the path of Fed policy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 39.11 points or 0.11% to 35,360.73. S&P 500 lost 6.11 points or 0.13% to 4,522.68, and also the Nasdaq Composite dropped 6.65 points or 0.04% to 15,259.24. And back home, the benchmark equity indices on the Bombay Stock Exchange and the National Stock Exchange extended their opening gains and hit fresh record highs in the morning trade. The S&P BSE Sensex surged 366.32 points to a fresh record high of 57,918.71, while the Nifty rose 93.55 points, breaching the 17,200 level mark to a new all-time high of 17,225.75. The market touched an all-time high, taking mixed global cues and also factoring in the GDP growth of the country that indicates strong bounce back of the COVID-hit Indian economy. Unified Payments Interface, that is UPI based payments, hit record high, clocking over 6.39 crore transactions in August as per the data released by National Payments Corporation of India. A total of 6,39,116 crore rupees of digital transactions were recorded in August. In sports, let's get you updates from Tokyo Paralympics. India seeks to improve its overall tally of 10 medals on the 8th day of the Paralympics Games, with matches in badminton and athletics today. In swimming, Suyash Yadav will compete in the men's 100 meters breaststroke SP7 final. India will begin its badminton campaign with the mixed doubles pair of Pramod Bhagat and Palak Kohli set to face second-seeded French pair of Faustine Noël and Lucas Mazur. Later in the day, both Indian para-shuttlers will play their singles group matches as well. In athletics, Amit Kumar Saroha, one of India's most experienced Paralympians, will compete along with competitor Dharamveer in the men's club throw F51 final. Amit had finished 4th in Rio 2016 and is a strong medal contender this time as well. Alright, that's it in this edition of News in the Hour. And before we go, we will show you some beautiful glimpses coming in from a Karnataka artist. Now, this is the work of a young boy from Devanagari in Karnataka who used shirt buttons to create portraits of revolutionary Shahid Bhagat Singh and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Take a look at this. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.